The best way to keep them apart is to understand that if you see the ellipsis, it means it's the unfinished version. Seven Seas of Rhye with an ellipsis. Next, on PLD Project's Crown Jewels. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of PLD Projects Presents Crown Jewels. I'm your host, PLD, here on the PLD Projects Network. And this is the podcast where I take you on a journey through the entirety of the Queen catalog, song by song, version by version, as we discover what is the best version, the crown jewel version of each song to slide into our ultimate playlists. Of course, recently we've been doing a little bit of revisiting here because of the release of Queen 1 Collector's Edition box set, which gave us a lot of new versions of songs from the 1973 album, which we had already covered previously. But we're getting down towards the end now. Only a couple of episodes left before we resume our journey back in the Flash Gordon era. This week, Seven Seas of Rhye with the ellipsis. In case you don't know the story, you can go back and listen to it on our original episode. There are two versions of Seven Seas of Rhye. Is for two tracks of Seven Seas of Rhye, I should say, not versions. The Queen 1973 album was the first time the song appeared in an unfinished format. It closes out the album, and they title it Seven Seas of Rhye ... the ellipsis, because it's only about a minute 15 or so of the song. It's not really the full finished song. The idea being at the time that they would end Queen 1 with this song and then open up Queen 2 with the full realized version of it. It's not exactly how it ended up going down. It would end up closing out the second album as well, the full realized version, although it would also become a hit single for the band as well. But we are only going to be listening to this track. We kept them separate. Obviously, Seven Seas of Rhye from Queen 2 has its own episode and its own rigmarole, its own crown jewel. Previously, we only had the album version to listen to. The Queen 1 box set has given us two extra versions to tackle. The 2024 mix, just like every track on the album, and from the Queen 1 sessions, Trident Take 3. So we're going to listen to those two versions and decide if they will take over as Crown Jewel. How are we going to listen to them? Well, I don't want to get copyright struck, so what I do is if you look into the show notes below, the descriptions, you'll find a link to a Google Doc. On that Google Doc, we'll have links to YouTube videos of all the versions we're going to listen to today. So when I tell you to, you're going to pause me, click on the link for the versions, listen to it, come back and hear me talk about it. Without further ado, I think we should just get right into it. First thing we're going to listen to is the 2024 mix, but I'm going to have you listen to both the album version from the 2011 remastering and the 2024 mix so you can really hear the juxtaposition of the differences between the two. But it's time now, pause me, come back, and we shall talk about it. And there you have it. Now, usually, so far in the revisitings, I've been giving this story before we listen to the tracks, so I had to save it to after. We're going to keep it fresh, try something new. Stay with me. The reason why there was a 2024 mix made is because the band was never satisfied with the original sound of the 1973 album recorded in Trident Studios. Band newly signed, were in the bottom rung of what was to be the studio's pecking order, as it were. They basically were given no real time in the studio, basically just free time whenever anybody else wasn't recording. It could be the dead of the night. It would be the Trident setup. They'd have to do the Trident drum set, much to Roger's chagrin. So the sound was never really fully realized. It had this dead sound which Roger hated. The band just didn't like the mix in general, and they've always wanted to go back and revisit it. And with today's technology, they can actually do so. And Brian Roger can sit down and actually give a really punch up to the existing tracks, as it were. And that's what they did. So every version sounds closer, according to them, closer to what they wanted it to sound like initially. And you can really tell the difference, honestly. It's much more punchier, much more crisper. I will say there's a lot more separation between the instruments in the track. I've said this on pretty much every 2024 mix. That's the main distinction. The drums are more punched up, powerful. In this case, I'll say they're maybe a little bit too much for the song, possibly. They're a little bit overbearing compared to the original mix. But that's a minor nitpick overall for the rest of the sound. The bass and the piano get separated really nice in the beginning. And there's a lot more that's going on in that back half, I know back half of a minute, 15-second song, that you can really distinctly hear. And it's really kind of eye-opening in a way. It makes it for my sake, I think it's a better version to hear at this point. I'm really happy to hear it, really excited to hear it. It's definitely a little bit different and a little bit more distinct. So yeah, your miles may vary. I'll be interested to hear what you have to say about it. You can leave that below in the comments. But we're going to keep going here. This is going to be a quick episode. Like I said, we only have the two versions to take in. This one, you're going to pause me and listen to Trident Take 3, come back, and then we will talk about that one. And there you have it. That's Trident Take 3. Now, this is the difference between, like I said last week, the difference between what this podcast is trying to do, trying to find the best version of every song, or the crown jewel version of every song, versus like trying to review or say what's an interesting thing or not. Because quite frankly, these box sets that we've been getting from Queen, News of the World, Miracle, now Queen 1, hopefully in Queen 2 soon, according to Brian May in his letter to the fan club, a few months away. It sounds quite ambitious. I'm hoping, hey, if it's this year, I'm excited about it. But the difference is these session discs that are basically early demos, earlier versions of the songs, are probably my favorite part of the releases, getting to hear the band at a rawer part of the sound of the song, still developing, still playing around in the studio. You get to actually feel like you're sitting in the studio as they develop these like big tracks and fun times. So I love getting these to listen to, and I'm sure it's actually probably fun for you guys too as well. However, that being said, it's highly unlikely I could ever see one of these becoming a crown jewel, because the best version is one that probably ended up being released or ended up being on the album. That's not necessarily 100% of the time going to be accurate. There are some demos that are really close to finished, that like the song itself is finished, but there may be just slightly different takes that can be considered for the crown jewel of the song. However, most of the session releases for these box sets, they're really too earlier on in the take to really challenge that, especially because they also would add the fun bits of the band chattering together, kind of just playing extra stuff in between. So it's not something you'd put on a playlist, for example. However, again, very, very interesting to hear. In this case, we hear Freddie instructing Roger on the tempo right at the beginning. The sound is a bit closer, the tempo, I should say, rather, a bit closer to what eventually will be on Queen 2. The Queen 1 version, the Ellipsis version, is a lot slower. It's a slower version on Freddie on the piano. This was a little bit sped up, and perhaps that's one reason why it slowed down, because Freddie's piano playing isn't quite on point yet for this track. It's a very difficult thing to play, as far as I've played piano. I kind of never really tried playing this, but it comes across pretty quick through the years. So maybe it's a little hard to play. Maybe that's what happened and why it's slower. And by the time Queen 2 came around, he really had practiced enough to the point where he got it good. I mean, that's one of the stories behind the track. Also, is that one of the reasons they wanted to close with this and then do the full version later is that they hadn't quite gotten it up to speed yet, but liked the track idea so much they wanted to kind of get it out there. The ending of the track is a little more fooling around, having a little bit of Roger and Freddie giving some more banter, Freddie saying he likes a previous take, which is kind of cool. The version itself, though, is pretty cool. It's not too far off from what we get on the final album, but again, just not quite there yet, tempo a little different. But overall, hey, it's quite an interesting track for sure. Alrighty, there you have it. That's the end of this episode's listening session. I just want to go to the ratings and the rankings and things of that nature. I originally gave this song a 5 out of 11, because we always turn things up to 11 here on PLD Projects, and this doesn't change anything. It's still a 5. It's because it's hard to rate as anything but an incomplete song. Even if it's listed as such, even though technically, it's a complete song because it's an officially fully released version. But listening, obviously, to the Queen 2 version is the better way to go. But I can't cut it off to Queen 1, so I thought 5 was just a good compromise at this point. It's really hard to rate that anything different. But more importantly, which version is the crown jewel? That's the meat and potatoes of the podcast here. Originally, I had just the album version. That was the only one I had, so that was the crown jewel. Now, where is the ranking of the three available versions I have? Well, it's pretty easy and cutthroat. I think if you listen to the podcast, you understand exactly where I'm going to go here. Tried and Take 3 would be the least one. The album will be next, and then it's a 2024 mix. I did war a little bit because the drums being a little bit overpowering comparatively in the 2024 mix, but that really crispness and separation that really gave us that smorgasbord of sounds in the back half of the track really helped elevate it just enough to take the cake. It is the 2024 mix. Sorry for not being very... I usually try to make some kind of big drum roll and make a big deal out of it, but this one seemed kind of quick and simple and easy to talk about. So that's it for this week. The 2024 mix is it. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for sticking around and taking this in. If you do like what you hear, hit that subscribe, hit that like, leave comments, help us fight Allegory's evil rhythm. You can join a Patreon, patreon.com/PLD Projects, where I let you listen to these episodes early, much earlier in the week than they would be released. And in some cases, for some of these, I actually might be getting them like a week or two in advance because I have to bank a few before I go away on vacation. But that's it's for you to decide whether you can support like that. I understand if you can't. A great crew there, Austin Cadell, Brennan Buckingham, great crew of people there. So come join us. We have some fun there for sure. Elsewise, though, I mean, I understand if you can't. I fully understand that shit too. But if you can help the other ways by liking, subscribing, and sharing, all that kind of stuff, that would also be greatly appreciated. So, all right, next week will be, I believe we have 2 episodes left in the Queen 1 Collector's box set. Next week's going to be a twofer. I'm going to take on Hangman and I'm a Man, both live tracks that were released in the Sessions box set. These were originally talked about in a grouping of odds and ends I was kind of going to play with. But Hangman and I'm a Man got official releases on the box set, so I'm going to put them as a twofer. They're both just 1 track each, so I'm going to make that a twofer next week. And then we will close it out with something I kind of debated doing or not. There's a song called See What a Fool I've Been, which is officially released initially as a B-side of 7 Seas of Rhye from Queen 2. So I was going to wait and maybe just take this, and especially with the Queen 2 box set supposedly coming out this year, I could just add that to whatever else we get from See What a Fool I've Been in Queen 2. But I decided, hey, maybe this will be the only track I'll do 2 revisitings on, because I do want to do it while we're doing Queen 1. It felt incomplete to have that be the only track from the box set that we're not going to listen to and give a shot at. But then again, it's going to be the Crown Jewel version. The Crown Jewel version that goes in the completeness of this Queen 1 session is going to be that version, because it's the only one from the Queen 1 album, so to speak. So that's why I kind of went back and forth. But hey, why not? That means we get to listen to 2 versions, 2 tracks, I should say, rather, throughout the playlist. So, all right, we will see you next week then. Until then, as always, keep yourself alive. God save the Queen. And don't forget the ellipsis. We'll see you next week.